lead shelf life is very little, right? If you're not responding right away, we need to get in the minds of the customers, right? They're doing research. Hey, these have really good reviews. Like this looks good. I'm gonna put in a form. The shelf life is really, you're gonna lose an opportunity for sure.
Welcome back to Center Stage. My name is Danny Decker. Have another great guest this week, Matt Lauro. Matt is a chief revenue officer and has some really interesting background. I'm excited to have him on the show. Matt, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Danny. Excited for the conversation.
So what is a chief revenue officer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say it's a newer term. It really started with the SaaS organizations, the tech companies out of Silicon Valley, and has kind of come into the corporate world. But really, at its core, the idea is bringing sales, marketing, and customer success together under one umbrella and aligning those teams within an organization. And a CRO's job is to really orchestrate that and drive pipeline and revenue.
I love that. I love that. And, I know you've got a little bit more of a corporate background, and our audience is typically small law firms, small businesses. And so this is one of the reasons I'm really excited to have you on the show today, because I think you just articulated, I think, what is a central challenge for a lot of law firms, which is getting marketing and sales to work together. Right. And obviously, as a marketing agency, this is really important for us, too, because we succeed when our clients succeed. And no matter how well a given marketing campaign is performing, if it's not translating into sales success, then, nobody's happy. So obviously, with your background, can you talk a little bit like, why is that so hard? Like, why is it so hard for marketing and sales to get on the same page? I have just seen that over the years, and I imagine you have too. So, like, why is it so hard?
I mean, I could talk for probably hours about why it's so hard. I think probably the core reason is they just speak different languages, or historically have spoken different languages, right? I think sales has always kind of seen marketing as a support function. Make this deck look pretty, make this, one pager look pretty, put some ads out there so that we get some new leads in business. So it's always been really a support system. I think up until recently, marketing sitting at the table from a strategy perspective with sales. I mean, when I was running global marketing teams back in the corporate world before I started my own company, it was really our MO was, hey, we're not doing anything from a marketing perspective if it's not driving revenue, right? And we're not building anything if sales isn't included in that conversation. So it's always been just kind of siloed for one reason or another. And I think it's probably historically into the leadership kind of level. You have a CMO, you have a CSO, and they sit separately on an executive team. And that's where I think really the CRO mentality is massive for organizations, especially these mid-sized companies that you work with. I mean, most of my portfolios are these mid-sized companies, and they struggle to get sales and marketing aligned. I mean, typically the CEO or the founder is doing a lot of the sales, and then they hire, a marketing agency or maybe a marketing manager to do the marketing, and they're not really connected from a strategy of, hey, this is where we want the business to go. How do we talk and get our message out there to drive conversations with the right people? And that's really, I think, the key is having them speak the same language, but then also goes down to the KPIs and how you measure the business. The business has to be measured on the right metrics, right? Marketing's always kind of had these marketing metrics that nobody else in the business understands. Sales has had these sales, metrics that everybody understands, but how do you start to create combined metrics that are both sales and marketing driven?
Yeah, I love that. And my philosophy, Matt, has always been, the job of marketing is to create sales opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And like the metrics like impressions and followers and clicks and all of this, like at some point it's just vanity metrics. At the end of the day, we work with small law firms who, if they're spending dollars on marketing, they need that to be contributing to revenue growth. And so for me, it's always been really helpful to just first off get on the same page that that's the job of marketing is to produce revenue opportunities, whether that's through referrals or new leads or repeat engagements, or it can look different. They're different sort of use cases, but like the end of the day, the job of marketing is to support revenue opportunities. Would you say it any
100%.
differently?
I would say drive revenue opportunities, right, and create revenue opportunities. And I would go further and say a lot of those vanity metrics or the marketing, data points, the business doesn't really care about, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I would present to leadership, I mean, impressions, all of that, like engagement, like they don't really care. They don't want to know how the sausage is made. They just want to enjoy it at the end, right? So to me, the turning point for the marketing and sales collaboration is that qualified meeting, right? As long as we've built everything with sales to ensure that we're going after the right people with the right messaging of what they care about and where their pain points lie and our value prop lies, that qualified meeting is where sales actually cares because that's where the proof is in the pudding. It's actually legit. It's a person, it's an organization, and there's an opportunity with the dollar amount to it. That's where I think the business and sales cares. Marketing has a lot, obviously, right? Running a marketing, there's a lot that goes before that. But I think sales really doesn't care about that, right? They just do whatever you need to do in order to get these qualified meetings for me so that I can drive more revenue for the business.
Love it. So you come into an organization and where do you start when it comes to sort of creating that alignment? Like how does your process begin?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty simple. I think it's simple. I think it's a little bit, you know, a little bit different for different companies and clients. They always are. Some clients are looking for the silver bullet, right? Like, and you probably see this on your end. Hey, am I going to get 100 leads if I start engaging with you? And it's like, no, we're going to set the foundational pieces to align the right teams and the right motions out in the market. And all of that really starts, in my opinion, with the customer. So you really need to understand what the customer cares about. And how I typically do that is not only meeting the team and kind of where the business is and what's working and what's not working, but having focus groups with customers. So long-term customers that have been around for a while, brand new customers, and really understanding from them in their own words, why did you buy these services? Why do you continue to, partner with this company? Why did you choose this company over competitors in the market? And those kind of key questions sometimes bring a lot of really interesting information back to the business. So, I mean, I've sat on those focus groups, I've facilitated those focus groups initially, and founders and CEOs have said, well, I never thought about positioning it that way, right? Like we're kind of all going at it the same way in whatever market we're at. This like sea of sameness, we're all kind of saying the same thing. And it really doesn't mean anything to the buyers typically. So, how do you break out of that kind of sameness and really talk directly to the buyer? So that's where I really start is the buyers understanding what those customers actually care about and then building that back into how we go to market from a messaging, from a channel, from just our overall strategy for revenue.
I like it. Okay. So one of the things I don't want to say struggle with, but one of the things that comes up often and I think is really important when we're working with law firms is response time, right? And so if we're running a Google Ads campaign or a Facebook Ads campaign and generating leads, one of the sort of key metrics to success in terms of converting a high percentage of those leads into paying clients is response time, right? And getting back to leads quickly. And do you have any insight into that? First off, would you agree that that's important? Do you have any thoughts on how businesses can sort of optimize that? And especially remember, our audience is on the smaller side of things, right? So we typically most listeners here probably don't have a large sales team. It's maybe one person in their intake team, maybe a couple people. So any thoughts about just the general importance of responsiveness and kind of how to approach that?
Yeah, no, 100%. And a lot of the teams that I work with are a sales team of one or maybe two or maybe none. Like I said, sometimes the founder is the salesperson, right? Or the CEO is the salesperson. So 100% you're right. I mean, the lead shelf life is very little, right? If you're not responding right away, we need to get in the minds of the customers, right? Here, they're doing research just like we do research for anything that we buy, right? I think it's kind of the Amazon of the world, like the B2C world has come into other buying decisions. And if you're going after a law firm, for example, you're going to research all the law firms in Charlotte or wherever you are. And you're going to put out requests, and you're going to see, oh, hey, these have really good reviews. Like this looks good. I'm going to put in a form fill or whatever it is, or I'm going to email them or contact them. If you don't get a response right away, you're going to just move on, right? Because you probably at that point in your decision making have reached out to a handful of firms, right? So the shelf life is really, you're going to lose an opportunity for sure. So I 100% agree with you on that. I think, and what I've done with clients of similar size is automation is your friend, right? So it might not be maybe a live person reaching back out right away. My goal, right, is that you should drop everything. If you have a hot lead coming in and is engaging with you and wants to have a conversation, that should be top priority. But I understand in these businesses, it's not always top priority or things get in the way. But automation is a great way. So I've built out, very simple automation tools where somebody submits it and you respond right away with a personal message, that comes back through your CRM or whatever tools that you're using. Also, AI is huge in this, and I'm sure Dana, you probably dug into a lot of this. There's AI agents out there that can act and feel like a real person and do some of that pre-qualification. Because the other thing too with a small sales team, as you know, is you can spend a lot of time with crap leads, and you really want to focus your one or two salespeople on qualified leads. So how do you start to kind of do some knockout questions at that initial stage so that your salesperson or sales team is only talking to people that potentially are going to become new customers and not wasting 30, 40 minutes on people that are never going to be customers because they don't fill that ideal customer profile that you've built out.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, and I think, automation, you kind of hit on that. And so, one of the things we'll set up for our clients is if a lead comes in, they're gonna pretty much instantly get an email sent out with a link to book a call, right? And I agree with you. If nothing else, like a quick automated response is super important. I think, one of the challenges, I don't know if your clientele, if this is typical, but I know our audience pretty well, and oftentimes in a law firm, the person who's responsible for handling inbound leads might be a receptionist, office administrator who
Yeah.
has other jobs too. And one of the challenges is, you know, honestly, responding to leads isn't always the most fun, right? It's not like, sometimes you get tired of making calls and going to voicemail, and it's not the most fun way to spend your time. And so what sometimes ends up happening is responding to leads gets pushed to the bottom of the priority list each day. And that's why I really am a big advocate of, whenever possible, having somebody who's full-time job. Like, if in my opinion, if you're running ads and generating, more than a small trickle of leads, right? If you are generating, 5+ leads a day, I really think you need to have somebody on your team whose number one priority is responding to those leads. Because otherwise, in my opinion, like, you're kind of wasting money. It's not that you can't get a return on your ad spend, but you're not getting the max return. And so I'm a big advocate of, I'm not saying that's the only thing they can do all day, every day. Maybe your lead flow isn't high enough to justify that, but that needs to be their primary job. And everything else is only happening when there's
Yeah.
not a lead that needs to be
For sure.
responded to.
Like I said, I mean, that you need to drop everything because that's new business, that's new revenue coming in. So either you have a dedicated person or it needs to be on the top of a priority list. But yeah, for sure. I mean, things happen. I think our culture, right, is instant gratification, right? How many times have you submitted a form on a website and you didn't get a reply like, thank you for submitting the form, or you didn't get an email right away? And you're like, did I actually do it right? Like, did I make the purchase? Did I, fill out the form? Like, you need that instant gratification of like, hey, I did what I needed to do. Now the ball's in their court. And that is exactly what happens in a lead situation. Like, but automation, to your point, that's huge, right? If you have one person, maybe it's not that, it's a thank you for filling out the form. We'll get back to you in 24 hours. That's not what they want to hear because they probably, in this case, need, an answer right away because they're dealing with some type of crisis potentially or some type of issue that they need, they need legal support. They need a professional. But it could be, hey, answer these 3 questions. And then that way, those 3 questions maybe knock out 30% of those leads coming in. And then the person, the receptionist, whoever's qualifying those leads, doesn't have to waste time talking to these 3, 4 people that don't meet some of the criteria. Maybe those knockout questions in a law firm are, is this urgent matter? Is like, what's your timeline? What's your budget? Whatever those kind of
Sure.
knockouts for your ideal customer. So then that person is getting like a little bit warmer or more qualified lead before they have to pick up the phone and have that conversation that they're maybe dreading.
Love
Um,
it.
so I think that's where you can be a little bit smart in automation. Yes, there's million automation tools and stuff, but maybe asking some of those pre-qualification questions. So then it's one less thing that the person, when they pick up the phone or email them, have to do, and they can really dive right into the, setting up the meeting with the professional.
Do you have any favorite automation tools, Matt, or recommended CRM, especially again for businesses on the smaller end of the spectrum? Do you have any particular like go-to tools that you recommend?
Yeah, I've seen and looked at all of them. I'm typically like, I love HubSpot, and a lot of the mid-sized companies I work with enjoy HubSpot too. HubSpot can get expensive, but there's more and more CRMs that are coming out that have the same capabilities and are cheaper. They're not kind of upcharging you as you go. But the CRMs I see out there now are all pretty good. I think from an automation and AI perspective, one, I sourced through a lot of them from a sales perspective, and one that I really liked was Sales Ape, APE, like the monkey, and that was really awesome. It's similar to some of the other AI agents out there, but what I really liked there is that it was super easy to set up. So think of a small, mid-sized business, like they don't have a lot of time to set up an AI. You literally just, if you were hiring like an internal salesperson, you literally send them all of the material, point them in the direction, like PDFs, PowerPoints, whatever you have, you train them basically. They learn very quickly, as you can imagine, and then you start to have some conversations with them offline and teach them as they go, like, hey, you talked a little bit too much, or I wouldn't dive into price at this point, or whatever. And I launched it at one of the clients last year, and I will say that it came across as a real person, so much so that the prospects thought it was literally a right person, and was actually, when they would come into the office, were asking for that person, of like, hey, I spoke with her, she was super nice, like, can we, can I meet her and just put a face with a name now? And that that really, that personal level, but automation and being able to, as you can imagine, answer emails and conversations around the clock, was really huge for that client. And because they had one salesperson too, and Sales Ape was able to basically take away the burden of all that pre-qualification and all those kind of bad leads that was wasting that salesperson's time. And so I would highly recommend Sales Ape. And that was pretty early on last year. I think they've evolved quite a bit over the last year too. So there's probably some more cool functionalities there.
Love it. I'll have to check that one out. I have not heard of Sales Ape, but that sounds really interesting. So okay, so as you're evaluating CRMs, it sounds like you've done a lot of that, and I agree with you. There are so many out there, and for the most part, just from our perspective, Spotlight Marketing and Branding, we'll work with just about any CRM. A lot of our clients use legal specific CRMs. Lawmatics is a big one. Clio Grow is another. So I don't have a huge dog in this fight. Let's put it that way. But so as you're looking at CRMs, are there any, I don't know, sort of key boxes that you want to be sure that it checks, right? Like what are some of the most important like baseline functionalities, especially believe it or not, there are a lot of business owners and law firms out there who still don't have a CRM at all. So the
Yeah.
idea of like going shopping for your first CRM can be kind of intimidating. So like what are some of the like basic things that you're looking for in order to like seriously consider a CRM?
Yeah, I think, I mean, one thing you have to consider too, because I've worked with a lot of companies, large and small, that are still working off of Google Sheets, right? So to be able to move the business from Google Sheets to CRM is a big change management, right? So that's one thing that you have to consider, is how, like, there's a CRMs, and depending on where you go, there's a lot that offer a lot. But do you want to, I kind of attest, like, are you walking around the block and then you're gonna just like the next day run the New York Marathon? Probably not. Like, take those baby steps. And the same happens with the CRM. So to me, simple is better. But I think some really key things that I look for, especially for a small, mid-sized company, is you need to be as efficient as possible, right? So how can you build out workflows and automation to make your sales process easier? So for example, it could be as easy as, hey, this person is a lead, and now I booked a meeting. So now they're a prospect, and now that prospect turns to a customer. If you have to manually, as a salesperson, have to do all of that, that just adds more to dos and like administrative work to your already busy day. So having automation that triggers and brings people through a contact through the funnel is really, I think, key, especially in a small mid-sized company, because you need to be as efficient as possible. And then to me, anything that you can do externally, and this is where you come in, obviously, Danny, with your marketing agency, any outbound work you can do, automation and at scale is really, really key as well. So I always look for some type of marketing automation, either via SMS or email. And then really that internal process automation to make the sales journey seamless for the customer, but also super easy for the salesperson, because salespeople hate to work in CRMs and put in data, right? Like that's their least favorite thing to do. They just want to go out and have conversations with people. So how do you make it as easy as possible for them to not have to type in their Google sheet and make it actually easier for them to use a CRM and have the right data? Because you could have the best CRM with all the functionality, but if people aren't putting stuff in it, then it's just a tool that you're spending hundreds of dollars a month on, and it's not going to get you anywhere. So really making it as easy as possible for that salesperson to work within the tool, and bring opportunities forward in the pipeline.
I love that. And I love the mindset too of like, let's not try to run the New York Marathon in a day, right? Like let's just kind of start with the basics. I mean, we work with clients who don't yet have a CRM, but we're big believers in email marketing, and especially for law firms, right, where so much business comes through referrals and word of mouth marketing. And so we will very often set our clients up with just a simple MailChimp account, which allows us to do some basic email automations and send out a monthly newsletter and things like that. And that is just a massive, massive step forward. And it's like, is MailChimp is it even intended to be a full-on CRM? It's not, right? And a lot of our clients have a separate CRM, but the point is just taking that first step of even just getting some basic email automation set up is really a game changer. So I love that thought process, because it can feel overwhelming for sure to move into a CRM. So like, don't think you have to do it all overnight, and just take that first step, and then you get some wins, and then you can build on that.
Yeah, and you need to, I mean, salespeople and just business leaders in general need to feel those wins, right? If you are saying, hey, I've been doing this the same way for 20 years in a Google sheet or an Excel sheet, and now you want me to do it in this CRM, like there's people that are resistant to change, as we know, right, in these organizations. So make it as simple and easy. And to your point, like show them those quick wins and why this is going to make their life easier, right? It might be difficult for the first couple of weeks, but after that, after you kind of get in the flow, this becomes, like just routine. And that's where you need to get to. So that change management, I will say, is you cannot underestimate the change management that goes into, even in a small company, changing to a CRM from Google Sheets or Excel.
Love it. Okay, so Matt, if somebody wants to learn more about you, connect with you, follow you, where can they do that?
Yeah, so they could follow me on LinkedIn, Matt Lauro, Lauro. They could also check out my website, which is fractionalcro.org. And on there, you'll see we have a free assessment, go-to-market assessment, kind of maturity assessment, which I think is really cool. And a lot of small to mid-sized companies are starting to take that and starting to understand kind of where their gaps are. You could just email me too at matt@fractionalcro.org. I'm happy to have any conversations with your audience.
Love it. Matt, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Danny.